start recording once again. We go back to European Renaissance and in Western thought and culture. As I said, this is the map that used to be in that time, in that era. This covers all the era of Renaissance. We'll define Renaissance. We'll talk about the factors that made it Renaissance era and the beginning of it in history, and how people were described as in belonging to that time. And we'll talk about art and literature also, and eventually, and especially we'll talk about Martin Luther as an example. Now, what was the European Renaissance? The Renaissance was, as you can see here, in European history. It covered a certain era, which is from the 40th to the 70th century, from the 17th. Okay, we have it. It's regarded as a cultural bridge between the Middle Ages, and it's used to be taken, considered as part of modern history. Now, you can see here one of the paintings that is illustrated here, that was considered to be in the Renaissance, European Renaissance era. It started as a cultural movement, as you can see, very working on in Italy and on art. Especially in the medieval period, and then it was spread to the rest of Europe, and it marked the beginning of what is called modern age nowadays. Okay. Now, after that, or a period after the Middle Ages, it started. We have the start or the beginning of what is called the modern world. Now we can see here. This is one of the major scientists and artists, which is Da Vinci. This is one of his works. So during the Middle Ages, Europe suffered from both war and plague, and educated people also started to reject medieval values, and they were looking to the classical part and the classical past for ideas. And now the Renaissance was, as you can see here, a period of interest in many things. Number one, art. They were interested in art and also in literature. I'm sure you know more about literature more than me, and in science. An example of that, as I told you, we have here some of the books that were known at that era. You can have a look on that. And here, one of the paintings, let's say, for a very famous scientist who painted this, which is Da Vinci. Okay. Now we'll have another very separate one on Da Vinci later on. We'll talk about it. Now, the Renaissance factors, why was it considered as Renaissance in history? We can say first that it was very prosperous because of commerce and because of trade and commerce. So we have European commercial cities, and these cities have become the key center of Europe. So the cities are considered as the key centers of Europe. That's one of the reasons. So it's prosperity and commerce. Now, number two, it's using a national language. Europeans needed a single language, a national language, and that was a necessity for them to unite. As we say, for example, in Arab literature, so to unite and to organize themselves through their relationships, with others. That was very important. Now, the fall of Constantinople was another factor, according to historians. The fall of the city was very remarkable, and the capital of what is called Byzantines was in the hands of Muslims. According to them, unfortunately, by the Sultan Muhammad al-Fatih, And also you can see that the cause of migration of many scientists who carried books and ancient Greek instruments also, and that all led them to restore life to Latin culture. Okay, now also the Italy, as was considered, as you can see here, the map of Italy. It was one of the home. It was considered as the home of Renaissance. And the Renaissance here began in northern Italy at the beginning. That was around 1300. And then, Italy, that it had three advantages that fostered the Renaissance. First, thriving cities. And also it was considered as a wealthy merchant class for people there. And the classic heritage of Greece and Rome was illustrated there. Okay. You can see here the Colosseum. It's Italy, home of Renaissance. So Italy is considered as the home of Renaissance. And Renaissance started in the Italian city states, as we said. We call them city-states. Mainly Venice and Florence and Rome, three city-states, very important city-states. Venice, Florence, and Rome. Now, these city-states were not run by kings or through, feudalism. So how was it, or how did it start? They were run by people who are used to be merchants. So it's like rich merchant families. And the most famous of these families was the Medici from Florence itself. Now, the Renaissance man, this is as an example here, the wealthy families that should pay for was because of the fancy buildings at that time, and the superb sculpture, as you can see here in this painting or in this sculpture and photo. They have very beautiful paintings also. So the patriarch was an example of a man who could produce all these objects into to become known as what is called nowadays the Renaissance man. Okay, so it is patriarch, and upon his name was we say the Petrarchan. Okay, now the Renaissance art, here are also other examples. I would like you to search for the title of such paintings if you are interested. Now there are the art here that was passed into what is called an era of humanism in art. So humanism here, it's a system of thought, let's say, that focuses on, it's not only in art and literature, it focuses on nature, on ideals, okay, but not on ideals the way it is treated in, for example, philosophy in Greek philosophy. We'll talk about that later. So they consider nature, ideals, achievements of human beings, and of course they used to concentrate on all what is divine. Okay. Now here you can see also visual art that was very, very famous at that time. Here, as I told you, Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci, this is the photo of Leonardo da Vinci profile. Some people say that it's similar in a way to Mona Lisa. We'll talk about that also later. We have this very famous also photo, very famous painting of Supper, okay, which is very important for Christianity and Christian believers. Now here also we can see Michelangelo, that one of your colleagues mentioned before in his presentation. Michelangelo, this is the David called, and St. Peter's Basilica. And we have the Sistine Chapel ceiling also here, you can see. Very, very well known. Okay. Also, in literature, I'm sure you know about William Shakespeare and his sonnets and plays and essays. Maybe you have that in your study, you learned that. And we have a very famous name also, which is Erasmus. Erasmus, who is known as, humanism. By him, we knew what is called humanism, and it was a focus in human achievements mainly. Okay. Also, we'll end here with Martin Luther. Martin Luther, you can see, is was a monk, okay, like a priest, okay. He was from Germany, originally from Wittenberg, Germany, and he became, upset with the church. So he argued that the church has become corrupted, and they need to change in a way and to develop. So that was, the way now Martin Luther considered that no more selling of indulgence is accepted, and people did not need to do that to the Pope and clergymen, to tell that they are saying the good words or God's word. Okay, I prefer here to put it in a capital letter here, God's word. And also, they describe the fancy and expensive churches that were not necessary at that time. That was how Martin Luther described it. So he was refusing to have that, indulgence and expensive churches, let's say. Okay. Also, Martin Luther, he made a list of complaints. As you can see here, that is the list, and they were called at that time the 95 Theses. Maybe I would like to hear some of you. Maybe I'll ask Muhammad next time, because this is related to his presentation, to talk about the 95 and search about the 95 theses by Martin Luther. What were they and what were they about? Okay. Now, Luther teachings also spread, and at that time we began to know about the invention of a printing press by John Gutenberg, and he made it easier, as you know, for people to make more copies of Luther's Bible. So because of him, we knew Luther's Bible. That was very important. Now the references are very clear here. You can see it in Britannica Encyclopedia, that part that talks about Renaissance event. And then also you can see it in the History World Organization that talked about Renaissance. Okay, that was in brief the European Renaissance in Western thought and culture. Okay. Let me now stop the recording and listen if you have any question, please.